Romans 12, verse 3. For by grace, or unmerited favor of God, given to me, I warn everyone among you not to estimate and think of himself more highly than he ought, not to have an exaggerated opinion of his own importance, but to rate his ability with sober judgment. This verse in Romans 12:3 starts out with grace, which is an amazing place to start, because grace is a very good thing. Grace, as we know from the song, is an amazing thing. But one of the things that we forget about grace is that grace can also be a very offensive thing. Jesus tells us this and reminds us of this by telling us an offensive story about grace, and it's in Matthew 20, verses 1 to 16. Jesus says this, "For the kingdom of heaven is like the landowner who went out early one morning to hire workers for his vineyard. He agreed to pay the normal daily wage and sent them out to work. At 9 o'clock in the morning, he was passing through the marketplace and saw some people standing around doing nothing. So he hired them, telling him he would pay them whatever was right at the end of the day. So they went to work in the vineyard. At noon and again at 3 o'clock, he did the same thing. At 5 o'clock that afternoon, he was in town again and saw some more people standing around. He asked them, 'Why haven't you been working today?' They replied, 'Because no one hired us.' The landowner told them, 'Then go out and join the others in my vineyard.' That evening, he told the foreman to call the workers in and pay them, beginning with the last workers first. When those hired at 5 o'clock were paid, each received a full day's wage. When those hired first came to get their pay, they assumed they would receive more, but they too were paid a day's wage. When they received their pay, they protested to the owner, 'Those people worked only 1 hour, and yet you've paid them just as much as you paid us, who worked all day in the scorching heat.' He answered one of them, 'Friend, I haven't been unfair. Didn't you agree to work all day for the usual wage? Take your money and go. I wanted to pay this last worker the same as you. Is it against the law for me to do what I want with my money? Should you be jealous because I am kind to others?'" This is probably the parable of Jesus that stands out the most to me. And if you're like me, you're struck by just how unfair the story seems. You're struck by this. Those hired earliest worked all day in the scorching heat. They worked a full day, and they were paid accordingly. But also, those that just showed up for an hour were paid the exact same thing. They were given unequal pay, and it seems to be complete and total injustice. We just wouldn't stand for this in our society, and obviously they wouldn't stand for this in Jesus' society either. But the people that were in the vineyard that were hired to work, those that were hired earliest in the day, they were focused on their work, they were focused on their effort, they were focused on their skills and what they were able to accomplish. And all of that focus made this situation just seem incredibly unfair to them. But we have to look and we have to ask, why were these people actually paid in the first place? Was it just because of their hard work? Well, they could have probably gone anywhere and done the same amount of hard work and not been paid anything for it. But was it really because of their effort? Was it really because of their skills that they received the wage that they did? Well, according to this story, no, it is not. They received the wage because it was the landowner that hired them. He hired them, every single one of them, no matter what time of day that they were hired, because he was generous. Sure, the laborers that started earliest in the day were probably very excellent workers and hard workers and skilled workers, but their only reason for getting a job in the first place, their only reason for payment, was because of the generosity and the grace of the landowner in the first place. Now, all of us are uniquely skilled, uniquely gifted, uniquely equipped to be in the situations that we are in. We have all been given great skills and abilities in that way. And God does incredible things with those skills and abilities. God takes and uses those things, and it's amazing that he takes us and uses us in an incredible way for his kingdom. But when do we most often see God at work? When do we really look and say, this was all God's doing? Quite often it's not when we've taken our skills and abilities and said, I've done this in a really effective way. It's when we're at the end of our rope. It's when all other solutions have been exhausted. It's when a situation is so badly damaged that there is nothing that we can possibly do to repair it. That is quite often when we see God at work. In the work I do as a pastor and the projects I get to work on, I'm always thrilled when a project comes together well, when I and the team that I'm working with, when we're able to put our skills to work and have something go successfully. I'm just thrilled by that and by the success that we're all able to have together. But even more than that, that thrill pales in comparison to the situations where I have been deeply in over my head, when I have been in situations that are far beyond my skills or previous experience or abilities. Because those are the situations where I have seen God at work, where God is the only one that can get the credit. The places in my life where I've seen God genuinely use me in the lives of other people is not when I'm at my sharpest, but it's when I just feel like there's nothing I can possibly offer. And God takes that and uses that, or even sometimes God just works despite all of that. When we look at our lives, when we look at every situation that we face, and every situation that we're in, and we look at that through the filter of grace, we see more and more that everything we have in our lives is all of the grace of God. The more we look at the family and the friends that we have in our lives, the more that we see there's nothing that I've done to earn this. There's nothing that I've done to earn this person's friendship or to be part of their family. It's just simply the grace of God that I have these people in my life. And we start to see more and more that all of life is simply a gift from God. All that we receive is the grace of God in our lives. And all of life is the goodness of God. And God fills up our lives with that goodness. And the overflow of that goodness spills out of our lives and into the lives of other people. Yes, all of us have unique talents, unique skills, unique situations that God has placed us in where He is putting those skills and talents and abilities to work. But when we see the grace of God, it helps us to be sober-minded about those same abilities. Yes, we can be thankful for them, but we also know that the work that is sincerely happening in the world that is incredible is all of the hand of God. And God seems to use us best and most when we were deeply in over our heads, when we're past our skill abilities, just when we think that we matter to God because of how good we are at what we do, Jesus takes us and corrects us and say, no, you do not have value to me because of how effective and skilled you are. You have value to me simply because I have called you and loved you and chosen you. It's not about the laborer and the great value that the laborer thinks that he has in this story. It is about the generosity and the love and the grace of the landowner. A proper understanding of grace in our lives is going to make us incredibly humble and grateful. And we look at our lives and see what we have and say, you know what, all of this is because of God in my life. And when we have that grateful and humble attitude, we are able to simply share a transforming message that transforms the lives of people around us. And a great attitude, an attitude that is grateful because of the grace of God, is something that is truly contagious.